Good morning, everyone. I had a little bit more time and was able to record a constructed league. And for those of you that have been living under a rock, like I have, this is the Tibalt's Trickery combo list that I happen to have all of the cards for now. I was saying this deck is probably not very good. Like, you're gonna fold to Force of Negation, or like, if it becomes real bad, people will just run Mind Break Trap. But I've seen some gameplay of this deck, and it does look silly, and it would be remiss of me to not at least give this deck an attempt. I know people are probably sick of this, because I'm definitely not the first person to play this. In fact, I think this is a Magic Aids list. I've seen at least 3 other variations on this list. All basically trying to do the same thing. And what is that thing, for those of you that don't know? It's to cast a Cascade spell of any kind, Cascade into Tibalt's Trickery, which then can target the Cascade spell. Then Tibalt's Trickery can counter that spell. You mill 3 cards at random, and then you exile cards from the top of your library until you exile a spell with a different name than the card you countered. So it's possible to, like, I cast Violent Outburst, I cascade into Trickery. Trickery counters Outburst, mills me into a Ardent Plea. Ardent Plea I cast, I go into a Trickery, then I Trickery Ardent Plea, and then I mill into either like a Chancellor, an Omniscience, a Kozilek, an Ulamog, an Emrakul of some kind, and hopefully win the game pretty much on the spot. We have Simian Spirit Guide and Gemstone Caverns as a way to accelerate our mana, possibly even do this combo on turn 2 or turn 1. So, alright, I'm going to quit rambling, and we're going to take this into a constructed league, and we're going to see if it's any good at all. Alright, I will see you all in round 1. Alright, round 1, here we go. I would like to play first. We can't keep this hand, even though it has Chancellor, and I love Chancellor. We only have 1 mana source. I can't really keep this hand either. 3 mana sources and a Violent Outburst I will keep. We have to put back 2 cards, so we're going to put back Emrakul and Omniscience. Oh, you know what? Chancellor doesn't work here. Okay. I have made an error. I'm not going to reveal Chancellor, because we can't do anything with the mana on turn 1. So I'm going to play a mountain past the turn. Hopefully we draw Simian Spirit Guide and we can just go off turn 2. Otherwise we can draw land and go off turn 3. Opponent starts Misty Rainforest. Passes, we draw Gemstone Caverns. So I'm going to pretend that I'm playing Free Win Red. Okay. Opponent gets a Zagoth Triome. They untap. If they play a fetch land here... Okay, they didn't. So basically we're looking at any opportunity to cast Violent Outburst where my opponent is tapped out, preferably on their turn. So that they can't like Force of Negation us or something. So if they like tap out to play an Uro, we'll just Violent Outburst. Okay, opponent shocks Breeding Pool. They pass. We draw Chancellor of the Annex, pass the turn. Opponent untaps. They play a Forest. And they are passing. We untap. Draw Emrakul. This is one of the weirdest decks to be top decking anything in. So if my opponent like Cryptics a land or something here, we would... Well, we're just going to do this, even if they have Force of Negation. Tibalt's Trickery, Violent Outburst. Okay, they do have Force of Negation. Which is basically what we anticipated. Okay, you can have lands or spells. They probably just take the pile of lands here. They do. Okay. Well, we need to draw another Cascade spell, preferably a Violent Outburst, then an Ardent Plea, and then finally a Demonic Dread, in that order. So, okay, so opponent plays a Breeding Pool tapped, then they play a Wilderness Reclamation, which will allow them to untap all of their lands. I probably should have waited until they tried to cast that, but I don't think that would have worked at basically any time. Alright, we draw Simian Spirit Guide, so we pass the turn. Opponent Mystic Sanctuaries. Puts Force of Negation on top of their deck. They're going to play Uro to draw Force of Negation. Yeah. Okay, there's basically nothing we can do at this point, because we're just top decking terribly. I kept a terrible hand, though. So, versus our opponent's deck, I'm going to bring in Chancellor of the Annex. Demonic Dread does have a place, but it's greatly diminished. And I think I'm going to cut Kozilek here. Then I could bring in Smiters, because Smiter seems decent against them, but the problem is they play Uro, which is just a bigger blocker. Smiter is better when you're playing against a deck that maxes out on hand hate. So, we'll try it like this. Hopefully we get a Chancellor in our opener along with the combo. Because if we just have an opening hand that's like Spirit Guide, Green Source, Violent Outburst, Chancellor, and yeah, like there's nothing they can do. They can't even force then. Alright, we'll play first. Violent Outburst, Simian Spirit Guide, Chancellor of the Tangle. Alright, yeah, we'll keep. So fun fact, we can, we have 4 mana on turn 1. If we had 5, or if we waited until turn 2, we could actually Violent Outburst, cast Tibalt's Trickery. If our opponent has Force, they can Force, and then we can Simian Spirit Guide and Tibalt's Trickery anyway. Okay, reveal Chancellor, but we're just going to go for the turn 1, I think, here. Because, like, backup plan, we can draw something else we can cast, I suppose. Play Gemstone Mine, exile Spirit Guide, red, Violent Outburst. Did you keep the Force in the game? You did not. Cast Emrakul, gain control of my opponent's turn? I mean, that doesn't seem fair. Just casual... What is that? Like, that's turn 1 Emrakul. That's, turn 1 bigger than Phyrexian Dreadnought. Like, my goodness. That doesn't seem fair at all. Okay, so I knew I was going to have at least one big win like that. That's pretty crazy, though. So now we're just going to see how consistent we can make it with my terrible luck. This is a turn 2 Violent Outburst. Just kind of... Actually a little bit slow. I hate to say that. But you know what? We'll keep. Because if we draw like a Simian Spirit Guide, I'm pretty sure it's turn 1. Play Gemstone Caverns. We'll exile City of Brass. We're keeping Forbidden Orchard in case we draw Demonic Dread. Opponent plays Polluted Delta. We draw Emrakul. So play Gemstone Mine. Pass the turn. I think I needed to mulligan for like Violent Outburst plus Chancellor. Okay, opponent plays an island. Passes. We draw Tibalt's Trickery. So play a mountain. Pass the turn. If we wait for 2 more mana, we could Violent Outburst on my opponent's end step. If they have like a Cryptic or something, then we could Tibalt's Trickery or Violent Outburst. Okay. We untap. Draw Pillar of the Paruns. Play Pillar. Pass the turn. We will have to tap correctly if this is our plan, but I think we're going to lock it up here. Okay, opponent plays a Flooded Strand. Passes. We untap. Draw Gemstone Caverns. Play Forbidden Orchard. Pass the turn. Opponent does not crack Flooded Strand. They're trying to draw lands. Okay, they play a Field of the Dead, so let's go for it. So on my opponent's end step, red, green, any color, Violent Outburst, Cascade into Tibalt's Trickery. Our opponent is going to let this resolve. Okay. Play Chancellor of the Annex. If my opponent counters this, we'll Tibalt's Trickery this. We're getting remanded. Okay. Tibalt's Trickery. Give our opponent a 1/1. Cast Chancellor of the Tangle. I mean, it's a 6/7 Vigilance reach, right? Alright. We untap. Draw another Chancellor, which we're actually pretty close to just casting. Attack for 6. Opponent chumps with the spirit we gave them. That makes sense. Pass the turn. Chancellor of the Annex would have been way better, but this is bound to happen occasionally, right? So opponent untaps. I would really like to draw another Cascade spell. Okay, we're drawing all the lands we can't play multiples of. I was hoping we would get another land that isn't Gemstone Caverns, because if we did, we could play out the 6th land and then play out a Chancellor the turn after. Actually, we can't, because Pillar of the Paruns. So we are very far away from... okay, you can have Cryptic Command, Growth Spiral, or those cards. Okay, opponent takes the pile of 3. They untap. They have 10 cards, and they play an island, so they're still holding Overgrown Tomb. They're going to cast Hour of Promise. Sure. They get 2 fetch lands and 2 zombies. Okay, then they have to discard a Nile Spellbomb. They draw a Gemstone Mine, play Gemstone Mine, go to combat, attack for 6. No reason not to, it has Vigilance, so... Opponent chumps with a zombie. They untap. They play a Flooded Grove. Make a zombie. So now they can actually make enough zombies to block down the Chancellor. Looks like they're going to play Uro. They're thinking about it, though. Okay. So, they sack Uro, they gain 3 life. They put a fetch land into play. Okay. We untap. We draw Emrakul. Alright, pass the turn. I think we've lost. Because our opponent has way too much mana for, like, potential counter spells now, and Chancellor is not going to cut it. But I mean, like, what we had was a valiant effort, and this is how the combo fizzles. Is we hit one of our non-game-ending spells with Tibalt's Trickery. And there are builds that mitigate this and just try and maximize on the combo, but I think losing out on the ability to, I don't know, turn 1 Emrakul somebody probably loses you a few win percentage points, if I had to guess. Also, keep in mind, I kept a really, really dumb hand game 1. So, like, because, I don't know, I forgot how Chancellor works despite playing it in a million different decks. Okay, opponent decides against attacking. We untap. We draw Pillar. I'm just going to scoop it up at this point. There's, like, no way we win that. Alright, well, we saw the power, we saw the downside, so let's use that to make informed decisions for round 2. Alrighty, round 2, here we go. I have the feeling that our deck is going to completely obliterate anyone not playing Force of Negation, or an excessive amount of counter spells. Turn 1 Violent Outburst, you count me in. We also have Demonic Dread as a backup. So start Gemstone Caverns, exile Omniscience, opponent starts Fiery Islet. Okay, we untap, draw an Ulamog, play a Gemstone Mine, and we're going to stop on our opponent's upkeep and Violent Outburst. Okay, opponent starts Opt. So unless they have a Spell Pierce, Violent Outburst, Cascade, Moto. Okay, Tibalt's Trickery, 25 cards deep, counter Violent Outburst. Aw, we hit Trickery, so we fizzled. But next turn we'll have Forbidden Orchard into Demonic Dread, so hopefully that works. Alright, opponent plays Salundi Isle, meaning that they are almost certainly Storm. Okay, red, give them a 1/1. Black, whatever, Demonic Dread. Cascade, Trickery, counter Dread, cast Chancellor of the Annex, which is a card that is very, very good against Storm. It is, at minimum, a Sphere of Resistance, which is an effect that Storm just cannot beat. And we can do this again next turn. Because, like, their only option is to have 4 mana and cast 2 Lightning Bolts to kill Chancellor, which is just extremely unlikely. Alright, add 3 more Chancellors to the deck. I guess we can bring in Unmoored Ego, too, here. Like, the Unmoored Ego probably beats Storm, if we name, like, Past in Flames, but I'm gonna cut... Oh, what do I cut here? I think I'm gonna cut a Demonic Dread and Kozilek, 1 Chancellor of the Tangle. I can never remember which one that is. Only one I actually remember is Annex and Dross from the stupid deck that I used to play called Pitch Control. Alright, what are we looking at? This is not a fast combo. This is a turn 3 combo. I'm gonna mulligan. This is a turn 2 combo with Chancellor of the Annex backup. Yeah, I'll keep. Put back Omniscience. Let's do mean things to good people. Now, if my opponent has Mindbreak Trap, or because I don't think Storm plays Force, reveal Chancellor, put Gemstone Caverns into play. The cool thing about this is we can just exile Chancellor now. We get Chancellor's effect without even keeping it in hand. Opponent starts Spire Bluff Canal. They mulliganed to 3 or 4, and we start off with a free Force of Negation on the first spell. free, not Force of Negation, but it's a Force Spike. Alright, play a Mana Confluence, pass. Alright, opponent untaps, plays a Spire Bluff Canal. We draw another Gemstone Caverns. So play City of Brass, Moment of Truth. Blue, white, whatever. Okay, take a damage from City of Brass. Cascade, Tibalt's Trickery. Trickery, Ardent Plea. Cast Chancellor of the Annex. Oh, Storm. Storm, I'm sorry. We just won that match. This is so stupid. Why does this deck exist? I'll see you guys in round 3. Just a quick note, if you haven't already, buy Mindbreak Traps on Moto if you're playing Modern. Because the minimum number of casts that this deck has is 3, so it turns on Mindbreak Trap. So you can exile any number of spells, and that way you can even exile Emrakul or the uncounterable like haymakers that this deck casts. Let's see. This is not a turn 1 Dread. We're going to mulligan. Well, we have 2 Violent Outbursts. I'm going to keep. We'll put back Kozilek, because I want the reshuffle trigger on the off chance I'm playing against Mill. Which, a deck like this existing in the metagame means Mill is probably unplayable without, like, main deck Leyline of the Void. Okay, opponent starts Blackcleave Cliffs, Thoughtseize. They see Violent Outburst, Omniscience, Violent Outburst. They're going to take Violent Outburst. So we need to draw a Simian Spirit Guide. Okay, play City of Brass, pass the turn. We did not draw Simian Spirit Guide. So my opponent is going to snap off another Inquisition or Thoughtseize immediately to take the other Violent Outburst before we can combo. Yep. So now we just need to draw any Cascade spell except Demonic Dread, really. Okay, play City of Brass, pass the turn. So we have, what is that, 9 more Cascade spells in the deck. Okay, opponent gets an Overgrown Tomb tapped. They untap. We draw an Emrakul, pass the turn. Opponent plays a Tarmogoyf, we untap. Draw an Emrakul. Yeah, this deck has the worst top decks in the universe, I think. I don't know why this deck really isn't maxing out on Chancellor anyway, because, like, it counters hand hate. Okay, we go down to 17, we untap. Draw another Omniscience, pass the turn. I could discard Emrakul and put 2 Violent Outbursts back in my deck. So my opponent Assassins trophies us. We get a Mountain. You know, if I'm just saying, like, if I get up to, you know, 8 cards in hand, it technically increases the chances I draw a Cascade spell. Okay, opponent plays Kroxa. Or I can just discard the Kroxa. Discard Emrakul. Shuffle in. We don't shrink the Goyf, though, unfortunately, because my opponent played all the spell types that we had in the grave. They hit us for 4. We go down to 13. Untap. Draw an Urborg. Play an Urborg. Pass the turn. I mean, technically we don't fix our opponent's mana because they had 3 black sources anyway. We get bolted. Opponent is looking to play Kroxa this turn. So they should attack first because they only have 1 creature in the grave to maximize their damage. Unless they don't have a land, at which point they're going to play Wrenn and 6 and pick up a Bloodstained Mire. Then they're going to immediately replay it and crack it so that they have a land in the grave for Goyf. We can still win this if we draw a Cascade spell, like, right now. Simian Spirit Guide. That might technically keep us alive. So cast Simian Spirit Guide as a blocker, pass the turn. And as long as my opponent does not have removal, which they almost certainly do, we should survive 1 turn. Okay. Unfortunately for us, it doesn't work. Okay, so versus handhate.deck. I'm going to bring in Chancellor, and because they play creatures, I'm going to bring in Demonic Dread. I'm going to cut 2 Chancellor of the Tangle, Kozilek, because it's our worst, like, top-end flip. And I think I'm going to cut a land. We're going to try it like this. Alright, we'll play first. We have a Demonic Dread. We also have a Trickery, but don't think that's going to matter because we have no acceleration. 2 Cascade spells, and the mana to cast them. I'm trying to go for a fast one, though. Okay, this is turn 1. So put back Omniscience, put back Trickery. Okay, reveal Chancellor of the Tangle. Oh, this is not turn 1 because I can't cast Ardent Plea. I am dumb. Oh, I'm so dumb. Kano, colors of mana exist for a reason. Pass the turn. Oh, Kano, freaking read. Let's see, what is that? Hooked on Phonics 12, Kano 0, the primary color wheel 1. Okay, we draw Demonic Dread, and the game is over, hopefully. Play Forbidden Orchard. Black. Red. Give our opponent some creatures. Exile Spirit Guide. Demonic Dread Spirit. Cascade. Hopefully getting Tibalt's Trickery. Trickery. Counter Dread. Cast Ulamog. Blow up a land. It's probably the game. I can't imagine my opponent is going to be able to play Liliana and make me sack. Oh. Yeah, if the metagame can't respond to this and actually play counters to it, and I mean they can. You can play Mindbreak Trap. Silence would work also as a way to stop them from casting Trickery after cascading. Tempting. I want faster. This is more consistent, so I'm going to keep this. I'm going to put back Demonic Dread. We'll reveal Chancellor. So if they try and cast Hand Hate on turn 1, we can stop them from doing that, basically. Opponent starts Bloodstained Mire, cracks Bloodstained Mire, and the fact that this plays both Chancellors means that my opponent might think I just revealed Chancellor of the Tangle and cast Hand Hate anyway. Yep. No Hand Hate for you. Okay, we draw Demonic Dread. Play Mana Confluence, pass the turn. We're going to hide our basic land, because if our opponent sees it, they may fire off an Assassin's Trophy. Like, immediately. Okay, they do anyway. We have no more basics, so we can't search. That sucks. We untap, draw Emrakul, play Pillar, pass the turn. Now we just need to draw a Simian Spirit Guide, and we can combo off next turn. Opponent plays a Wooded Foothills, passes, we untap, there's Simian Spirit Guide, play a Mountain, green, red, Spirit Guide. I'm doing this on my main phase because my opponent doesn't have counter spells, and if I hit Omniscience, I want to cast Emrakul. Okay, Trickery the Outburst. Cast Spirit Guide. Ah, yes. The full 3 mana for the 2/2. Pass the turn. Well, the good news is we have 2 Cascade spells, so as long as we draw a 3rd mana, we should still be able to cast them both. Oh, that's the wrong... I hit the wrong button. Opponent cracks Wooded Foothills. Gets an Overgrown Tomb. 3 mana. Am I getting Kolagons commanded? Because if I am, I'm going to discard Emrakul and put Violent Outburst Trickery back in the deck. Okay. Yep, that's fine. We also get another Simian Spirit Guide we could potentially draw as a mana source, plus like 3 lands. So, this is good. That's actually good for us. Alright. Opponent untaps. So unless they have double Hand Hate, we're probably... Or they could have another Assassin's Trophy. Okay, Collective Brutality off of a Bloodbraid Elf. So they're going to duress us and take Demonic Dread. Which means we need to draw a non-Simian Spirit Guide mana source because we need to be able to cast Ardent Plea. So if we could draw one of those Mana Confluences we put back, that'd be great. Okay, we untap. Draw an Ulamog. Drat. We are in trouble. Pass the turn. Opponent untaps. They draw. Hit us for 3. We go down to 14. They pass. We untap. We draw Tibalt's Trickery. Pass the turn. We get bolted. They untap. Actually, if they cast... Oh, no, I can't Tibalt's Trickery. I was going to say, if they cast a Hand Hate spell, I should Trickery it. Okay, come on, we need a land. We need a land that makes blue or white. Untap. That's not a land that makes blue or white. Pass the turn. Okay, opponent cracks Wooded Foothills. Gets a Stomping Ground. Bolts us again. Alright, we're dead if they drew the 3rd Lightning Bolt. Or another Bloodbraid. They play Nurturing Peatland and cycle it. And they drew the Bloodbraid, hitting Thoughtseize. Well, I think we lost this one because we got severely unlucky. Which, I mean, is frustrating, but every time I see this deck underperform like this, it's going to be for the benefit of everyone. Alright, well, we're 1-2. Actually, I'm going to restart the client. It's lagging super bad. Okay, round 4. Here we go. Well, all of the fast mana in the world, no Cascade. This one looks pretty good, though. Gonna keep. Put back a Forbidden Orchard. Reveal Chancellor, play Gemstone Caverns, exile Chancellor. And we don't fold to Hand Hate. If my opponent's like Dimir and they have Hand Hate and Force of Negation, that would beat us. Okay, opponent starts Darkslick Shores. Inquisition. They should take Violent Outburst here. If they take Demonic Dread for some reason, we can Violent Outburst on their upkeep and they shouldn't be able to do anything about it. Okay, they take Violent Outburst. So if they have Force of Negation, they beat us. Black. Red. They get a 1/1. Demonic Dread. Cascade. Trickery, Dread. Oh man, it's always Simian Spirit Guide for me. This is not the version of the deck I should be playing. I should be playing the version that guarantees you cascade into something stupid. Alright, opponent untaps. They pass. We untap and draw. Gemstone Mine. Play Pillar of the Paruns, go to combat. Attack for 2. Okay. Opponent goes down to 18. We pass. They untap. I still have no idea what my opponent's deck is, so they hit us for 1. We untap. Draw Mana Confluence. Play Mountain. Go to combat. Hit them for 2. All I know right now is Chancellor of the Annex is coming in for game 2. Opponent goes to 16. Opponent hits us for 1. Oh, it's ninjas. Interesting. So opponent gets to draw a card. We untap. Draw an Omniscience. Play Gemstone Mine. Go to combat. Hit them for 2. Opponent plays a Secluded Glen, revealing Vendilion Click. Okay, so they're like fairy ninjas. I could see that being a thing if they've got like spell stutter sprites and stuff. Okay, we untap. We draw Chancellor. So we're gonna get clicked. Okay, they leave us with our hand. Play Mana Confluence, pass the turn. Yeah, we're still gonna attack. I doubt... Well, no, we can't cast Chancellor of the Annex because of Pillar of the Paruns. So... Opponent flashes in a Spell Stutter Sprite. They untap. They play a Fairy Seer. And they go Scrying. They play a Swamp. Go to combat. Attack us for 6. No blocks. They get to draw a card. We untap. We draw a Spirit Guide. I'm going to go ahead and scoop it up. Cool. So Chancellor of the Annex in. Demonic Dread in. And then I'm going to take out a land. 1 Chancellor of the Tangle. Kozilek. And... I think 1 more land. I'm going to try it like this. 24 lands does seem like a lot of lands. And I did just remove 3 mana sources from the deck early, so hopefully that's not a problem. Maybe I should take out Emrakul the Promised End rather than the Chancellor. I don't know. Maybe going down to only 10 top-end hits and then like 8 medium-end hits. It's bad. I'm just kind of playing around at this deck because I still don't know how to play this. I want to make that clear. I have no idea what the best way to play this is. I didn't watch anybody else's content on this. I just shamelessly stole the deck. And I shamelessly stole this version because it plays one of my favorite cards. And one of my actual favorite cards. They're both actually my favorite. Alright. We'll play first. Mulligan. Well, we have a lot of redundancy. We just need to draw a mana source of any kind. On turn 3, we can just start casting stuff. I think this is fine to keep. This is potentially risky if my opponent has a lot of hand hate or counter spells. Put back Omniscience. We'll go ahead and start Gemstone Mine. I think ideally we draw Simian Spirit Guides. Semi-ideally we draw land. Okay, opponent starts off with hand hate. We get Inquisition. Opponent takes an Ardent Plea. Interesting. We untap. Draw Simian Spirit Guide. Play Forbidden Orchard. Stop on my opponent's upkeep. Green, red, red. Violent Outburst. Opponent gets a Spirit. Cascade. Hit Trickery. Trickery Outburst. Cast Chancellor of the Annex, which will allow us to combo unimpeded. Basically from now on. Because now my opponent has to pay 1 extra for all of their spells. They play a Mutavault. They play Fairy Seer, which we counter unless they pay 1. They pay 1. They get a 1/1 and go Scrying. Okay, let's draw a land. We untap. Draw Violent Outburst. Okay, go to combat. Swing for 5. Opponent chumps. Okay, they untap. They play a Watery Grave. Untapped. They hit us for 1. They're going to Ninjutsu. Okay, Ninjutsu is not casting a spell. We untap. They have Force of Negation mana available. So play Forbidden Orchard, go to combat. Attack for 5, take them to 13. Stop on their upkeep. Green, red, red. Violent Outburst. I guess technically I should have stacked the Cascade over the top of the Forbidden Orchard triggers on the off chance my opponent is playing Unified Will. which is 2 mana counter target spell unless, if you have more creatures than target opponent, or that spell's controller, I think. If my opponent has Force, they can't cast it here. They have to have like Mana Leak or a 2 mana counter of some kind. Okay. Chancellor of the Annex, number 2. Resolves. Now my opponent has to pay 1 twice every time they cast a spell. My opponent casts a Fairy Miscreant, which we counter unless they pay 2. Okay. They play a tap land. This means definitely no Force of Negation this turn. We untap. Draw Demonic Dread. Black, red, yield to those. Demonic Dread, targeting Ingenious Infiltrator. Add any color. Cascade, Trickery, hit Demonic Dread. Cast Omniscience. Shuffle everything back in. So now we can cascade more. Whee! Cast with Omniscience, Cascade. Hit Trickery, Trickery Dread. Cascade into Trickery, Trickery, Trickery. Okay, well there's one more left in the deck as far as I know, so let's go ahead and try and dig it up. Violent Outburst. Cascade into Trickery. Trickery, Violent Outburst. Cast Ulamog. Exile 2 of their lands. And the game is over. Alright. Why does this deck exist? So yeah, if you want to counter this deck, start playing Mindbreak Trap. Start playing Surgical. Start playing Hand Hate. Play Commandeer. I hate to say it, but it's kind of like play blue or black or bust. If you play white, you can play Silence. Silence would do it. Because if you silence like in response to the Tibalt's Trickery, then they can't cast, you know, whatever. The problem is blue is the only color that has access to stop this deck with its best hand, which would be like the turn 0 win. And they still can't even really do that because if you play like a green source, you have double Simian Spirit Guide, you use Violent Outburst on their upkeep, and they can't even Force of Negation you. So personally, kind of want to see this deck banned. I just want to see a ban on Tibalt's Trickery because I don't like being able to play a turn 1 Eldrazi consistently. That is not what Modern should be about. Modern should be about playing a turn 4 Eldrazi hilariously. Okay, we will keep this hand. We're going to put back an we're going to put back an Emrakul the Aeons Torn. Reveal Chancellor. Reveal Gemstone. Gemstone Caverns. Exile Chancellor. Okay. Opponent starts. Darkslick Shores passes. We draw Chancellor of the Tangle. Play Gemstone Mine. Pass the turn. Opponent plays a Secluded Glen Revealing Spellstutter Sprite. Casts an Inquisition. Pays for the Chancellor ability. Okay, they take Demonic Dread. We untap. We draw Tibalt's Trickery. Play a Mana Confluence. Pass the turn. Opponent plays an island. Passes. We untap. We draw another Trickery. Okay, pass the turn. We're almost to the point where we could Trickery one of their spells and then Trickery our Trickery. And then shenanigans happen. Okay, we get clicked. I think putting back a Trickery would be incorrect. So, they don't. Okay. My opponent attacks us for 3. That's fine, we go to 17. Opponent Thought Seizes us. They should take Trickery, yeah, they take a Trickery. Hopefully they do not have Surgical. We draw Omniscience. Pass the turn. Opponent untaps. I guess I technically am holding a counter spell. I should not be F6'd. Opponent goes to combat, hits us for 3. We go to 14. So we know they're holding a Spell Stutter Sprite, so they can counter any spell CMC 2 or less, which would be a Tibalt's Trickery. Okay, we draw Violent Outburst. So pass the turn. We're going to wait and see if they tap out of Spell Stutter Sprite mana for any reason. Preferably on their turn, but, I mean, that probably won't happen considering they're a flash deck. They play an Urborg, go to combat, attack us for 3. We're going to go to 11. cast Violent Outburst on their end step. So what should happen here is they'll Spell Stutter Sprite Trickery. I could have potentially waited for this, but we'll see. Kind of need to keep top decking Cascade spells, and we're almost out of Trickeries, so... Okay, there's the Spell Stutter Sprite, which we kind of knew was coming. Okay, Violent Outburst resolves. We untap, draw Demonic Dread. Demonic Dread, Vendilion Click. Did I not tap for red first? Red, black, black. Cascade. Should hit our last Trickery here. My opponent is playing Fairies, though, which is just a pile of counterspells, so if this gets counterspelled, I wouldn't be surprised. Okay. Trickery Dread. Mana Leak. Okay. So we don't have the mana to cast the last Trickery, which means we're probably just toast, because we're taking 4 damage a turn. And the only way that we would be able to get around this is if we had like 2 more lands and could cast a spell and then put Trickery on the stack, but I'm going to go ahead and concede. That was basically the best possible outcome for us, was cascading there and then drawing another Cascade spell, and my opponent just happened to have the 2 answers. So, okay. I want to make a note here that we've won at least 1 game every match, and it's been close. And I'm not piloting this deck well. So this deck is much better than I'm actually showing it off to be. And, like, it looks pretty good. So do not underrate this deck like I did. I think... with as memey and as consistent as this deck is, if you're going to be playing on Moto and in the modern metagame, you need to be prepared for this deck to exist, which means you need to have some kind of answer. If you're blue, that means playing counterspells. If you're not blue, that means... I don't know. I don't know what that means. I mean, if you're blue, you play counterspells. If you're black, you play Hand Hate. If you're white, you play Silence. Or you play Damping Sphere and pray it's fast enough. Alright, we'll play first. This looks like a keepable hand. We have a Chancellor of the Annex. If we draw a Simian Spirit Guide, it's turn 2, otherwise it's turn 3. I am a little bit sad because this deck existing basically invalidates Living End as a deck. My opponent is probably playing the same deck I am. And the difference being, I think Chancellor of the Annex beats Chancellor of the Tangle. Unless they have 2 Simian Spirit Guides, in addition to a land. Okay, they add green to their mana pool. It could be Charbelcher. They play a Gemstone Mine, and they pass. So it is basically, I think we're playing the mirror match here. Play Pillar of the Paruns, pass the turn. When it plays a Gemstone Mine, we untap. Draw Gemstone Caverns, play Forbidden Orchard. Black, make a 1/1. Red, red, Demonic Dread, Cascade, Trickery, Trickery Dread, Trickery, Trickery. Alright, now we're dead in the water, and we lose. This is the dumbest matchup ever. So, we've comboed, what is that? Just about every single game, except maybe the one where we got hand-hated like 9 times. My opponent's going to play an Ardent Plea then. And 4 or 5 of those times, we forgot about Chancellor of the Annex, so they just threw away Ardent Plea. Which means they cascade into Trickery with no legal targets. Okay. I mean, like, they could have waited. They hit us for 1. We untap. Come on, Cascade spell. Ardent Plea. Play Gemstone Caverns. So let's go white, blue, anything. Cascade, Trickery, into Ardent Plea. Well, into Chancellor. So we've had, like, several just, like, non-hits. This deck has, like, so many non-hits that don't win the game. And I understand that it does it to be fast, but, like, alright. My opponent hits Tibalt's Trickery. They cast Trickery into a Spirit Guide. Wow, this is like the most anemic back and forth of Tibalt's Trickeries I've ever seen. And probably will ever see, because I don't think I'm going to play this deck too much more often. Unless it becomes like the de facto deck, at which point I'll have to grind with it, which I hate. Hit our opponent for 6, pass the turn. We only have 1 Trickery left in the deck. They have 3. We untap, we draw, another Chancellor, play City of Brass, go to combat. If I can land Chancellor of the Annex by casting it, I Well, I can't because I have Pillar of the Paruns, but if I could, I think that would be game over because they would have to pay 1 for their Cascade spell, then they would have to pay 1 for their Trickery, and then they would have to pay 1 for the spell they actually cast, and I don't think they have enough mana for that. If I draw a non-Pillar of the Paruns land, that potentially gets us there, but not this turn, next turn. We draw an Emrakul. Okay, go to combat, attack for 6. So I really think that the Simian Spirit Guide version is probably the version that we're playing right now is probably the best version of the deck, because you have the mana acceleration. Alright, opponent has to start blocking. Go to combat, attack for 6. Okay, opponent chumps with a Spirit, pass the turn. They untap. They play a land. Legend rule themselves. Oh, they have another Cascade. Violent Outburst. Think they hit Trickery. They cast their own Chancellor. What is this? 4 attempted combos that did not hit a way to win the game? Well, that does save them from dying. We draw Gemstone Caverns, which is the worst land we could draw. I'll pass the turn. I mean, if we get up to 8 cards in hand and we discard Emrakul, we can reload and try again. Opponent drew a land. We untap. Draw Emrakul the Promised End. How much does this cost? 8 mana? Okay. Pass the turn. No attacks. Discard Emrakul the Aeons Torn. Shuffle everything back in. Opponent untaps. Oh great, here we go. Demonic Dread. Trickery, of course. Trickery gets them another Chancellor. That is like, what, 5 combos that didn't instantly win the game in the same game. We gotta draw a Cascade spell sooner or later, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I can cast a Chancellor of the Annex next turn. Pass the turn. We've gotta draw a Cascade spell. My opponent's only drawn like 9. My opponent is, by virtue of just having the ability to draw more Cascade spells than us, better at this combo than I am. Violent Outburst. Tibalt's Trickery. Spinning the Emrakul wheel again. Spirit Guide. Trickery. Okay, thank goodness. That's like 6 fizzled combo attempts. Oh, why is it that the longest game that we're playing is the mirror matchup? Oh, I don't like it. I do not like it. We take 6, untap, draw Mountain, play Mountain. We are going to go for the Chancellor play here. To take a ton of damage and give our opponent a 1/1, but now we have a lethal flyer that does interrupt them potentially casting a bunch of stuff. Pass the turn. We are taking a minimum of 8 damage and going to 2, but we have a lethal flyer. And, by the way, either one of us should have died on the first Cascade spell, but, you know, that's not how it goes. Oh, these have Reach! And Vigilance. This didn't do anything. My opponent should have just attacked. Alright, well, Demonic Dread. Cascade. Trickery. Trickery Dread. I mean, one of us has to win at some point, right? There we go. Big Papa Emrakul. Or Big Mama Emrakul, I guess. Alright, Chancellor of the Annex in. Demonic Dread in, because we just need to max out on trying to Cascade. What do we take out? Oh, we bring in Unmoored Ego for sure as well. We need to go down Kozilek, probably a land or 2. Then maybe we don't max out on Chancellors. I'll bring in an additional one. Okay, we're actually just gonna run the combo like this. I don't want to take out too many mana sources, but if we can Unmoored Ego name Trickery, they're basically dead. So we want a fast Unmoored Ego or a fast combo hand. And this counts as a fast combo hand, but it's extremely high risk. We did win game 1 though, so we will keep. Reveal Chancellor of the Tangle, and as long as we don't get turn 1 Emrakuled or turn 1 Unmoored Ego, we should be able to, in theory, win the game. Okay. Opponent starts Urborg. We untap. Draw Emrakul. Well, we're probably not turn 1ing an Emrakul. Violent Outburst. Trickery. Trickery Outburst. Chancellor of the Annex. That probably does it. Pass the turn. Opponent plays a Pillar of the Paruns and passes. We untap, draw Mana Confluence, play a Mana Confluence, go to combat, attack for 5. Opponent takes 5, goes to 15. They untap. So, like, the only way they can combo here is if they have a land, 3 Simian Spirit Guides, and a Cascade card. And they don't appear to have that. We draw Gemstone Mine. Play Gemstone Mine. White. Blue. Black. Ardent Plea. Cascade. Okay. Trickery. Yeah, allowing Trickery to hit your own spells was, I think, a huge mistake. Violent Outburst. Okay. Violent Outburst. Try this again. Trickery. Hit Violent Outburst. Oh, yeah, no, we win the game. Okay, Omniscience. Alright, opponent Violent Outbursts. Oh, active player, not active player, but they're still going to have to pay a mana for Trickery, which is going to get countered unless they have Spirit Guide. And then they would have to have another Spirit Guide for... yeah. Alright, we get 50 play points, and I really don't want to play this deck again because I anticipate a lot of people are going to be playing it, so my content of it is not going to be as popular. But if for some godforsaken reason you actually want to see me play this deck more, please leave a like, drop a comment, subscribe to the channel if you're so inclined, and remember you can follow me on Twitch. Same username over there as you find me on here. I stream Wednesdays at 6 p.m. Mountain Time, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, though the last few have been earlier. And this upcoming week is probably not going to be a Wednesday stream because I have a lot of travel planned, which is why the videos that you're going to see is probably Kaldheim Limited pre-recorded. Mixim, I haven't forgotten that you want me to play Eggs. I will be playing Eggs. I haven't heard back from you. I want you to know that I haven't forgotten. But I needed to play this deck for timely content, and for Eggs to do its due diligence, I need to actually practice with the list, because if I just go in blind, I will do it wrong, and it will look terrible. So, yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed. I don't think... my gut instinct is this is not the optimum list. There is probably a way to keep the speed and power of the deck. Maybe dropping like a land or two and maxing out on 1 or 2 more bombs. There might be bombs that have cycling abilities or alternate casts that you could use as a way. Like if you had Allosaurus Rider or something like that, you might be able to cast a spell that you could then cast Trickery out of hand, and then but someone smarter than me, someone way smarter than me, built this deck list, so who knows if that's right or wrong. This deck is way more powerful than I showed it off to be, and we even won a game every single match. There were several matches we should have won, we were just unlucky. And I don't think a deck like this should exist in Modern. At least not one that's this consistent. I'm okay with, you know, like the janky, oh yes, if the stars aligned and the winds are blowing and the Wi-Fi signals in 5G, then maybe I can get a deck that's powerful, but... Alright, I'm done rambling. I'll see you guys next time. Bye!